Flynn's comments just add to our concern about the relationship with Russia.
Those conversations have nothing whatsoever to do with those sanctions.
I don't think I want a guy who would get that.
Defending against the North Korean missile and nuclear threat, which I consider very high priority.
North Korea is testing President Trump.
There are massive numbers of non-citizens in this country who are registered to vote.
Nobody believes that. It's a lie. It's a delusion.
We are going to keep our country safe.
This executive order is so bad, he ought to just throw it in the trash can.
This is New Day with Chris Cuomo and Allison Camerata.
We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. This is New Day. It is Monday, February 13th, 6 o'clock here in New York. Up first, the president, Donald Trump's embattled national security advisor. Is he on thin ice? White House officials dodging repeated chances to defend Michael Flynn after reports that Flynn discussed sanctions with the Russian ambassador before President Trump took office.
All right, the president is also facing his first foreign policy test. North Korea test launched a ballistic missile. What will President Trump do to respond to Kim Jong-un? He also has a growing list of challenges. We're on day 25 of the Trump presidency. Let's begin our coverage with CNN's Joe Johns, live at the White House. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Chris. Unsure footing here at the White House this morning as this new administration tries to slog its way through multiple controversies in areas that the president viewed as strong points during the election. President Trump's national security advisor, General Michael Flynn, under fire. The White House sidestepping questions about Flynn's future.
Does the president still have confidence in his national security advisor?
That's a question that I think you should ask the president.
A U.S. official confirming that General Flynn did discuss U.S. sanctions with a Russian ambassador before Trump was sworn in, contradicting denials made by Flynn himself and Vice President Mike Pence.
They did not discuss anything having to do with the United States' decision to expel diplomats or impose a censure against Russia.
General Flynn on thin ice despite Trump's refusal to address the firestorm.
I don't know about it. I haven't seen it. What report is that? I'll look at that.
A senior administration official telling CNN Flynn has no plans to resign, nor does he expect to be fired. President Trump facing another big test over the weekend, North Korea firing a ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. As the president met with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, both leaders addressing the launch late Saturday night.
The United States of America stands behind Japan, its great ally, 100%.
Meantime, the Trump administration is weighing their options on his suspended travel ban, which could include writing a new executive order.
We can appeal the emergency stay to the Supreme Court. We can take our case en banc to the Ninth Circuit. We can continue the appeal with the panel, or we can return to the district court and have a trial on the merits. All options are on the table.
As fears grow in immigrant communities after hundreds of people in 11 states were arrested last week. This as a White House advisor reignites a conspiracy theory about voter fraud that has been repeatedly debunked without providing any evidence.
There are massive numbers of non-citizens in this country who are registered to vote. That's the story we should be talking about, and I'm prepared to go on any show, anywhere, anytime, and repeat it and say the President of the United States is correct 100%.
Today, the president meets here at the White House with the Canadian Prime Minister. Among the topics of discussion, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which the president has vowed to renegotiate. Allison and Chris.
Joe, appreciate it. Let's discuss. We have a big panel for you. CNN political commentator and political anchor of Spectrum News, Errol Lewis, CNN political analyst David Gregory, and CNN political analyst and national political reporter for the New York Times, Alex Burns. Errol Lewis, for all the intrigue surrounding Michael Flynn, there is a simple question that will get you to the root of it. Where is the transcript? We know that the communications between Flynn and the Russians were being monitored. It's multiply sourced. There are lots of different communications. They say they have them. There is an answer to whether or not he was discussing sanctions with Russia and how? Do you think we'll see that proof?
I think we'll find out whether or not the president thinks we're going to see it. You know, the question here is not just what's in those transcripts, and I assume the president has already seen it. I assume that he and his top advisors are making a decision about what that transcript
The president said
implies.
he didn't know what reports people were asking him about when the Flynn issue came up. He said, what report? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, you know, the president has the best information network in the entire world. So I assume at some point he's going to find out. If he doesn't know right now, he'll find out a minute from now. And then he'll have to make a decision. And I think that's what's going to really sort of tell the story. It also, I think, it can get folded into, and we've seen him do this with other important issues like his taxes, it does get folded somewhat into this larger question of what went on with the Russians with regard to the election. What kind of connections do they have to Trump, financial and otherwise, and political? And how does all of this fit into it? So this is a sort of an important piece of a much larger puzzle. And if they want to sort of make sure that we don't ever see any of this until the full puzzle is known, it may be a while before we see those transcripts.
David, I think it's interesting to try to determine what is President Trump's breaking point with some of his staff to whom he's loyal. The Logan Act that this might have violated is an obscure law, rarely used. Why would this be the breaking point for Michael Flynn?
Well, for a couple of reasons. Look, Stephen Miller, this young aide who was out on the Sunday programs yesterday, couldn't have been more emphatic by what he didn't say. When he was called on to defend Kellyanne Conway, boy, he was ready to go.
Yeah, good point, David. Let me stop you right there, because just so the people know how he deflected, let me play this, and then you can make your point. Listen to this.
Does the president still have confidence in his national security advisor?
That's a question that I think you should ask the president. The question you should ask Reince, the chief of staff. I'm here today as a policy advisor, and my focus is on answering the policy questions that you have.
The White House did not give you anything to say other than that.
They did not give me anything to say. It's not for me to tell you what's in the president's mind. That's a question for the president.
By the way, what's so interesting is this is a crowd that doesn't like to do Washington as usual. That was complete Washington textbook, which has let him twist in the wind. And by him, I mean General Flynn. So they're not defending him. They're obviously talking about what they want to do with him, where they've defended Kellyanne Conway. So I think, look, he embarrassed the vice president by sending him out there to say something that wasn't true. And I'm sure the president is loyal to Flynn. You've got other aspects, too. You've got this kind of shadow NSC that's led by Bannon and Miller that's at work. And you have, I think, a sense that they're really not very organized within the NSC, that they don't know what they're doing, especially with a president who tweets all of this incendiary language about foreign affairs.
To inform that position, David Gregory, we've got the New York Times here. Let's put up what they wrote about this. 3 weeks into the Trump administration, council staff members get up in the morning, read Trump's tweets, and struggle to make policy to fit them. Most are kept in the dark about what Mr. Trump tells foreign leaders in his phone calls. Some staff have turned to encrypted communications to talk to their colleagues after hearing that Mr. Trump's top advisors are considering an insider threat program that could result in monitoring cell phones and emails for leaks. What do you make of that, Alex, in terms of what the daily reality is there versus past administrations?
Well, I think we've seen things like this in past administrations, not quite at the National Security Council like this, but, that you do get to a point where an administration is politically beleaguered, in a bunker mentality, deeply paranoid about leaks. It just usually doesn't happen 3 weeks after the inauguration, right? So what you see here happening at the NSC and in other quarters of the Trump administration is that the president trusts very, very few people. He is surrounded by people who trust very, very few people. They are detached and alienated from the sort of professional bureaucracy, the civil service,